Welcome back and prepare to be bedazzled, because today we're going to be shedding light on why people who are part of Generation Z and the Millennial generation that work real private sector employee jobs based on voluntary demand feel hopeless about their financial futures. So why is this calamitous outcome transpired in the lives of millennials and zoomers who work real private sector employee jobs based on voluntary demand? Without further ado, without further delay, without further procrastination, allow me to demystify that answer to that inquiry right here, right now. Lamentably, much to my dismay, much to my consternation, much to my chagrin, much to my grief, much to my agitation, and much to my irritation, most real private sector employee jobs based on voluntary demand are deemed to be dead-end, dispiriting, harrowing, agonizing, debilitating, ineffably wretched minimum wage jobs that provide no benefits, no pension, and at most only provide an infinitesimal amount of fiat currency, which is in the form of a minimum wage. They do not even pay 1/4 of a subsistence wage for affording the utmost lowest level basic need, which is the need of housing. So if you lack housing, you're prone to succumbing to losing your life from hypothermia. And it's just a grim, bleak, depressing prospect to work a real private sector employee job based on voluntary demand that does not pay you anywhere close to even 1/4 of a subsistence wage for affording your utmost lowest level basic needs on Maslow's hierarchy of needs pyramid. So people are recalcitrant about working real private sector employee jobs based on voluntary demand because there's no enticing incentive to work them. People begrudgingly work them to help them to make the minimum payments on their bills. But if it's your only source of income, you will have a 0% chance to attain financial stability and attain financial security. The payout of fiat currency is not lofty enough to cover your utmost lowest level basic needs. So you're really subverting your quality of life when you work real private sector employee jobs based on voluntary demand, because it's dispossessing you of your sacrosanct time that you need to retain in order to build up sizable recurring revenue streams on autopilot to offset your recurring expenses. So, in other words, you may be unknowingly undermining your earnings potential by working real private sector employee jobs based on voluntary demand that not only cap your earnings potential and render it fettered, but also do so at such a low rate that it provides you with a 0% chance to ever afford to fund the cost of obtaining your utmost lowest level basic needs if the real private sector employee job based on voluntary demand is your only source of income. So the cost of living is exorbitant, and that concomitantly undermines a person's standard of living. It causes a person's standard of living to precipitously plunge if he has a high cost of living. And is not an affluent person. So when you work most real private sector employee jobs, the money almost always trickles up. There's a copious amount of CEOs who earn well over $165 million in compensation per year. So, even though a copious amount of CEOs are earning over $80,000 per hour, they are reticent about amplifying the wages of their employees. Companies exist to maximize the wealth of the chief executive officer and to maximize the wealth of their shareholders, and that's not conducive to maximizing the wealth of their employees. So, if you're not an executive at a company, if you're not a shareholder of a company, then it's almost tantamount to you working for free when you work a real private sector employee job based on voluntary demand. There is no benefits. The payout is minimum wage. At most, they do not shirk on paying you. There's no pension. The working conditions are often hazardous, lethal, perilous, brutal, grueling, and can render you highly prone, highly vulnerable, highly susceptible to succumbing to a workplace injury that can potentially maim you. So, working these real private sector employee jobs based on voluntary demand also renders you not only all the more susceptible to becoming maimed if they have hazardous working conditions, such as constantly lifting 50 to 75 pound parts and assembling them. It also renders you all the more prone to succumbing to chronic stress, chronic fatigue, and of course, acute inflammation. The experience of working most real private sector employed jobs based on voluntary demand is acutely inflammatory. Most of them require you to perform strenuous manual labor, and you can wind up contracting floaters of strobe lights are incessantly gleaming in your eyes, and that will cause your visual prowess to wane, atrophy, and be abated. In addition, they can also render you prone to succumbing to rotator cuff tears, plantar fasciitis, varicose veins, and tendonitis. And then you could even contract sprains and strains. So, there's no positive aspects appertaining to working them. You're not making inroads towards having a prosperous financial future when you work most real private sector employee jobs based on voluntary demand. Since most of them pay since most of them pay minimum wage, and minimum wage is not even anywhere close to being 1/4 commensurate to a livable wage. So I hope that you deem this video to be insightful, riveting, captivating, mesmerizing, enthralling, amusing, and engrossing. Most real private sector employers are keen on paying their employees minimum wage, irrespective of whether or not their employees can afford their basic needs. Thanks for watching. Have a blissful day. Goodbye.